I'm Ray King, Vietnam veteran, United States Marine Corps. Back in January '64 when I went in, it wasn't a hot conflict at that point. Originally, of course, I went to MCRD, Marine Corps Recruit Depot in San Diego. My wife and I, of course, were dating. We were high school sweethearts, and we decided the year before that we were going to get married. I had to go to my CO, my captain in charge of the battery, and ask permission to get married. I was only 20 years old. He said, yes, you can do that. We got married. We went on a honeymoon and returned from the honeymoon. And there was a telegram waiting there for me. My leave was canceled, and to get back as quick as possible. Within a couple weeks, I was on board ship, leaving from San Diego on a LST, which is a landing, LST means landing ship tank. There was excitement and adrenaline going, but not afraid. I wasn't afraid at that point. I was very confident in our capabilities and our training. I felt we could pretty well handle anything that was thrown at us. The ships pulled up onto the shore, and they opened the doors, and we just got our equipment out onto the beach. Well, about that time it was dark. There's 100 and some Marines out there stumbling around and not knowing where we were at. Just stumbling around in the bush and so forth. And we finally made it to an area that was clear enough where we could circle the wagon, so to speak. And they said, okay, go dig holes. And Marines are good at digging holes. We practiced that a lot. So we dug holes, and the gunny just said, get in the hole, be ready, be quiet. Because we didn't have any protection other than the holes we were digging. And then there was a Marine outfit about probably 1.5 miles away that was getting clobbered all night long. And we could do nothing. It was frustrating because we could do nothing to help, because we didn't know what was in between them and us. And we just kind of sat and watched the light show. We were a self-propelled artillery outfit, okay? They would set up what they call a sweep. They determined that there was a possibility of making contact with the enemy in a certain location. And so they would send out Marines, it could be anywhere from a platoon to a company, to wander around, if you will, out there in the jungle and in the hills, until hoping that they might run into some North Vietnamese or VC and pick a fight. But once the fight started, that's when we were, of course, there to support the infantry troops that were then helicoptered in. The first couple weeks, you're pretty nervous, but eventually you adapt to the conditions and to the heat and the bugs and everything else that's going on. There's people out there that mean to do you harm. And once you get that accepted in your mind, you settle into an everyday process of just going through the day and doing your job, making sure you did your job. The nervousness settles down, except, of course, when something happens, then adrenaline kicks in again and you're back up there again. The enemy always knew where you were, because you were always surrounded. They would do things, of course, sniper fire was a daily thing. Sometimes they would sit outside your wire and rattle the wire and smoke cigarettes. You could, just to harass you, in some cases, trying to get you to give away your location. We have these vehicles called Antos. That's a small track vehicle with 6 recoilless rifles, 3 on each side. And usually they were interspersed in the convoy. And they charged out from the convoy, and they went out maybe 100 yards or so, and they spotted where the fire was coming from. And it was almost surreal. And wherever that round went from the spotter rifle, which was a tracer, that's where the round was coming out of that recoilless rifle, rocket. And bam, they let them have it. In their own length, they could do a neutral turn and come back into the convoy, and off we go again. It was those kind of things that happened in short periods of time that you contemplate later in life as to, boy, what really happened there, and how did they were so in unison. It was like they were all had one brain. We did our jobs. We talked about things at night in the hole. I mean, we spent most of our nights in foxholes and bunkers. Yeah, we'd talk about some of the things that were going on, but most of the time you wanted to talk about happy things, good things, girlfriends and R&R. I did not know what was going on back here in 1966. We didn't have radios to listen to. We didn't even have electricity. We didn't have newspapers. And when you came back as an individual. You never came back as a unit like they did in the other wars. And so when I came back on an airplane with 100 and some guys I didn't know. They didn't know me. So you're coming back by yourself. When I came back, I was told the night before and didn't get a chance to say goodbye to anybody. Most of the guys that I'd gone over there with had already left. In fact, I was the last one of the original group to go. We landed together. I was the last one to leave. We got there and to El Toro Marine Base. They gave us our orders and they gave us some money. And they said, you can't wear a uniform. And that's when it really hit me. What is going on here? But I didn't care at that point. I wanted to go home. You know, I'd been married over a year, 14 months, and I'd seen her for 6 days, you know. I wanted to go home. I feel proud that I was in the Marine Corps. I feel proud that I did what I was asked of me. Sometimes I don't feel so proud of how Vietnam vets were treated coming back. Yeah, there was a lot of protesting going on, but for most of us that came home, there was silence. And that was hurtful, for sure. But there would be that silence. Nobody wanted to talk. Nobody cared, it seemed like. I've started writing about maybe 4.5 years ago. And my wife has urged me to do that. I still don't talk about it very much. But in my writing, I feel like I can put it all down there. And I have time to analyze what I'm saying and how I'm saying it to make sure that I say it the way I want them to hear it, rather than bits and pieces. I want them to understand, to get a different perspective of not only being there was about, but afterwards, the silence. It was 30 years after I came back where a total stranger welcomed me home.